Anxiety and stress are some of the most universal experiences we share as human beings. At some point, every one of us has felt the weight of the world pressing down on our shoulders, the racing heartbeat of uncertainty, or the overwhelming sensation that time is slipping away while our worries grow louder. These feelings can be suffocating, but understanding them and knowing how to navigate through them can transform the way we live our lives. Let's begin with a story that might sound familiar. In ancient Greece, there was a man named Sisyphus. Punished by the gods, he was condemned to push a boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it roll back down each time he neared the top. Now, imagine Sisyphus in today's world. That boulder could represent his unending worries, his anxieties, or the relentless stress of daily life. Each time he thinks he's finally free, it comes crashing back down. The story of Sisyphus can feel all too real for those of us trapped in the cycle of anxiety and stress. But what if we could learn to face that boulder differently? What if, instead of seeing it as a punishment, we saw it as an opportunity for growth? Anxiety often begins as a whisper. It's the subtle thought that tells you you're not prepared enough, you're not doing enough, or that something bad is going to happen. Over time, if left unchecked, that whisper grows into a roar, overtaking our ability to think clearly. One of the simplest ways to understand anxiety is by looking at it as the brain's way of protecting us from danger. It's an ancient survival mechanism, one that kept our ancestors alive in the face of predators or natural disasters. Back then, the fear response was vital. Today, however, the threats we face are often more abstract, like deadlines, social expectations, or personal insecurities. Here's an example to help break this down. Imagine you're walking in a forest and you hear a rustling in the bushes. Instantly, your body tenses, your heart races, and your senses sharpen. Your brain is preparing you to fight or flee because it doesn't know if the rustling is a harmless rabbit or a dangerous predator. This same response is what happens during anxiety. Except instead of a rustling bush, it might be an upcoming presentation or an unresolved conflict with someone you care about. The body reacts as if the danger is immediate, even when the threat is only in our minds. Stress, on the other hand, is often tied to external circumstances. It's what we feel when the demands placed on us exceed our perceived ability to cope. Think of stress like a violin string. When there's just the right amount of tension, the string produces beautiful music. But if the tension is too high or too low, the string either snaps or produces no sound at all. Stress can motivate us to take action, but when it becomes chronic, it starts to take a toll on both the mind and body. The key to managing anxiety and stress isn't about eliminating them completely. That's impossible. Instead, it's about changing our relationship with these feelings. One powerful way to do this is through mindfulness. The concept of mindfulness has its roots in ancient practices, particularly Buddhism, but it has gained widespread attention in modern psychology. At its core, mindfulness is about being present in the moment without judgment. It's the act of acknowledging what you're feeling without trying to push it away or hold on to it too tightly. Consider the story of a monk who was walking through a forest. He came across a raging river and realized he needed to cross it to continue his journey. After searching, he found a piece of driftwood and used it as a raft to reach the other side. Once he was safe on the shore, he considered carrying the raft with him, thinking it might be useful again. But then he paused and asked himself, "Do I really need to carry this raft? It has served its purpose." This story reminds us of how we often hold on to things, like worries or stresses, long after they've served their purpose. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring or denying what we've been through. It simply means recognizing when it's time to move forward. Breathing techniques are another tool that can make a world of difference. When anxiety hits, our breathing often becomes shallow and rapid, signaling to our brain that we're in danger. This creates a feedback loop, intensifying the anxiety. By taking slow, deep breaths, we can interrupt this cycle. Try this. Inhale deeply through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath for 4 counts, and then exhale slowly through your mouth for another 4 counts. This technique, often called box breathing, helps calm the nervous system and brings your focus back to the present. Another way to manage stress and anxiety is by reframing how we perceive challenges. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, once said, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves." Frankl endured unimaginable suffering, yet he found meaning in his experiences, which allowed him to survive and even thrive afterward. His story teaches us that while we may not always have control over external circumstances, we always have control over how we respond to them. Let's take a closer look at a modern-day example. Imagine a college student overwhelmed by exams, assignments, and social pressures. They feel like they're drowning, with no end in sight. In moments like this, it's easy to spiral into negative thinking. But what if that student paused and asked themselves, what is within my control right now? Maybe they can't control the amount of work they have, but they can break it into smaller, manageable tasks. They can set aside time to rest and recharge. By focusing on what they can do, they begin to regain a sense of agency. Social connection also plays a crucial role in alleviating anxiety and stress. Humans are wired for connection. It's in our DNA. When we isolate ourselves, as many of us tend to do when we're overwhelmed, it only amplifies our struggles. Talking to someone, a friend, family member, or even a therapist, can provide perspective and remind us that we're not alone. There's an African proverb that says, "If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together." This wisdom reminds us that we don't have to face our challenges in isolation. Exercise, sleep, and nutrition are often overlooked, but are foundational to mental health. Exercise releases endorphins, the body's natural stress relievers. Even a short walk can do wonders for clearing the mind. Sleep is another critical factor. When we're sleep-deprived, our ability to cope with stress diminishes significantly. It's like trying to pour from an empty cup. Lastly, what we put into our bodies affects how we feel. Eating a balanced diet rich in whole foods can support brain health and stabilize mood. Lastly, it's essential to cultivate self-compassion. We're often our harshest critics, beating ourselves up for not being good enough or strong enough. But consider how you would speak to a friend going through a tough time. Would you tell them they're failing, or would you offer words of encouragement and understanding? Treating ourselves with that same kindness can be a powerful antidote to anxiety and stress. In the end, dealing with anxiety and stress is not about eliminating them, but learning to coexist with them in a healthier way. It's about recognizing that these feelings, while uncomfortable, are also part of what makes us human. By embracing tools like mindfulness, reframing challenges, seeking connection, and practicing self-care, we can begin to navigate life's ups and downs with greater resilience and grace. And like Sisyphus, we can learn to see the boulder not as a burden, but as an opportunity to grow stronger with each push.